Ariel Helwani in Las Vegas being joined by Rowdy Ronda Rousey, who faces Julia Budd at Strikeforce Challengers on November 18th. And Ronda, it's good to see you in person for the first time. Something I've always wanted to ask you before we get into all the fight talk. The Rowdy, your nickname, does that come from Roddy Piper?
Yeah, it does actually. He was one of my favorite wrestlers back a while ago. He still is, but he's a good friend of Gene LaBelle, who's one of my corners, and I actually got to ask him personally if it'd be okay to borrow his name. So he said he's cool with it, so I wear it proudly.
So you actually came up with your own nickname?
Well, we kept trying to come up with nicknames for forever, and Rowdy was always the first one everyone came up with, and then we tried thinking of like other ones, like, but what else goes? Nothing. Just Rowdy and Rousey just go together. It was just natural, so we stuck with it.
And in a weird way, it sort of fits your personality, right?
Are you saying I'm rowdy?
Well, I mean, you've sort of shaken up the women's MMA scene in a sense. That's sort of rowdy in a sense, no?
Yeah, okay. I'll agree with you on that one.
Now, maybe for your next fight, you come out in the kilt, bagpipes, all that, or are you going to leave the Irish gimmick to him?
I'm actually not the least bit Irish. I'm like half Venezuelan and like a quarter English and a quarter Polish. So I think that would kind of piss off some Irish if I was, pretending to be.
Do you know his son? His son is also an MMA fighter.
Not personally, no, but I knew of that.
Okay. All right, enough on Rowdy Piper. Let's talk about this fight. You are climbing the ladder rather quickly in Strikeforce, and it's kind of one of the good things about being in the Strikeforce women's division because I think the division is still developing, and you're able to climb the ladder if you sort of, make some noise. You're fighting Julia Budd. She's a tough fighter, sort of at the same, experience level as you. Where do you think that you have the edge over her?
Well, I actually completely disagree with you. I don't think she has anywhere near the same experience level as me. I mean, she's 7-1 Muay Thai, 2-0 in boxing, and 2-1 in MMA. So she's competed 13 times in her life, where I've competed thousands of times in my life. I mean, when I was a kid, I was competing in 3 divisions a weekend, just doing match after match after match. So I feel like my experience is a big advantage that I have over her.
I guess I was more referring to MMA experience, but you make a good point. Of course, your judo background and whatnot. Are you even impressed with her? Are you impressed with what she's done in MMA?
I'm impressed with everybody. I take everybody completely seriously. I think it's stupid for you not to take a match serious, regardless of the person is. You could always, trip on the tape and, fall on your face. So you never know. I'm giving this my full attention at the time.
Have you watched your last fight, and are you certain that the right call was made, that the ref should have stopped the fight even though she didn't technically tap?
Well, she was screaming, and I could actually feel her arm popping out. And if you dislocate someone's arm, it's actually in the most sensitive area of your body. So if you're implying that I'm imagining sensations in that area, then we have another argument on our hands.
Right. Well, I wasn't implying that. I was just wondering if you thought, because there seems to be this weird thing going on now where referees are saying that if you scream, that sort of constitute a tap.
Well,
and
I thought she was yelling tap tap as loud as she could, and other people told me they heard that too, and she said she was just yelling out. But they tell you right before you walk in, if you anything verbal during a submission is counted as a verbal submission, they count it as tapping. Because I thought she couldn't tap because she was falling forward and using her arm to catch herself. So I think if she could have tapped, she would.
Strikeforce is an interesting spot now because maybe if we would have talked a week ago, we would have said there's a good chance you'd have to look for a job elsewhere come February. But it sounds like things are going very well. Dana White talked about how he's now sort of taking control. It appears as though Strikeforce has a future on Showtime, and that means women's MMA probably has a future as well. Are you hearing anything about next year and what the landscape will be like in Strikeforce, and especially for the women?
MMA is one of those sports that people are constantly saying a million things and gossiping, and I'm just going to keep doing my job and fighting as well as I can and putting on a good show. And if I keep bringing them, spectators and money, then I'm sure they'll keep us around. It
seems as though Strikeforce really likes you. They're pushing you very hard. Do you get that sense?
Oh, I hope so. I like them.
Right. But they've sort of been hot and cold with women, but they're putting a lot of videos out about you. They're bringing you to do media. They don't do that with a lot of other women. Why do you think that is?
Well, I'm doing the best I can to be as marketable as possible, and I think they kind of agree with me in that sense. So we're trying to work together and bring women's MMA to the limelight and make it look just as exciting and interesting as the men.
What are you doing in specifically to be marketable?
Well, I'm training as hard as possible, and I want to have a very exciting style, not just, to win matches, but to win them impressively. And, I took the time to do my nails and hair and makeup today. You have to do everything that you can to make it interesting.
Speaking of which, you've been putting out some YouTube videos lately, and your titles, and I'm not clicking on them for this reason, but your titles are very deceiving. Are you aware of this?
You know what? I don't think of it at first, but then I read them later. I'm like, oh yeah, but I just kind of think if if an unedited sex video comes out later, then people just won't believe the title and they won't click on it, so then I'll get away with it.
So is that something that you're trying to hide?
No, I'm just saying it's a possibility I'm prepared for.
Right. You're just in case.
Yeah.
Right. And what about the rest of the women's MMA community? Do you feel as though they've embraced you and welcomed you in, with open arms?
Some girls do, some girls don't. Everyone's their own person. They have their own opinions, but mostly a lot of the girls I've actually already fought have been very, very cool and supportive. And I see some other girls like on Twitter or whatever, talking smack. But I mean, that's good. You want to see like conflict and conflicting personalities and that kind of thing. People talk about sports like it's its own TV show. So if they have their favorite characters and say, oh, this person doesn't like that other person, that makes it fun.
Within their respective communities, it seems to me that MMA, women's MMA, is embraced more as opposed to women's boxing. If you know what I'm saying, mainstream media, the MMA media, they cover women's MMA like they do men's MMA, but women's boxing has really not broken through. Why do you think that is?
You know what? I don't really know, because I know a couple of women's boxers who are very cool and very pretty, and I think this boxing in general is kind of just going through a general decline, and I think that the women are being affected by that just as much as the men.
You mentioned being pretty. Do you think you need to be pretty, and it's not your fault, but it's just the way people perceive you and the way people are interested in women's sports to become a star? Do you think that's one of the troubles that you have to sort of break through in order to become a star, and one of the things you have to deal with when you are a women combat sportsman?
I think that if you want to bring in new fans, you have to really play up that entertainment aspect. And, if the fans are already there, they're going to start to appreciate, the actual skill and athleticism that goes into fighting. But if you want to bring those new people in, you got to show them something bright and shiny first to get them to look. And then I think, just true skill and sportsmanship is what gets them to stay.
All right, so what's the sort of time frame that you're looking at here? You've got this fight on November 18th. Finally, Cyborg is coming back in December. We haven't seen her in a very long time. How many fights away? Because the 145-pound division in Strikeforce, a couple fights away, and you're in the mix all of a sudden. So how many fights away do you think you are from really being a contender?
You know what? I've only been doing MMA for 1 year. I've had 6 fights in 12 months.
I thought you had all this experience.
I have all this experience, in competition, not in MMA. But I would like to have like 5 or 6 professional fights before I win for a title. And Miesha Tate did kind of call me out on Twitter, so I'm considering getting some extra fights down to 135 and slapping that title out of her hand first and then grabbing the other one second and hopefully unifying the 2 divisions.
What did she say?
She said, someone was like, you guys should fight. And she was like, yeah, I don't see why not. And I count that as if you're willing to fight me, then you're willing to fight me, and I should take it up.
Wow. You consider that a call out?
Yeah.
That was just her responding to someone on Twitter, no? Or you think it's personal?
Well, no, I think if you say you're down to fight somebody, then you think that you can beat them. I never say I'm down to fight anyone unless I think I could beat them. So if she thinks that, I have to prove her wrong.
Would you want to even go down to 135?
I think it'd be a nice move to have 2 belts. I think that'd be awesome.
I think a good move for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gina hasn't fought in a long time, but there are rumblings that she's coming back. Would you feel comfortable at this stage of your career fighting someone like her?
Oh, I would fight her today, for sure. But I don't think she'd want to fight me right away. I think we'd both be better off if she came back and had a couple, really good, impressive-looking wins first, and then let me beat her later.
And also impressive, you're nominated for Women's MMA Fighter of the Year at the World MMA Awards. Going up against Miesha, you're probably the 2 top contenders. Why should fans vote for you?
I was actually really surprised that I was nominated, but I think they should vote for me because my entire MMA career was within that 1 year span. I fought 6 times, and I think she fought once. And I just think I did more work and, put out a better performance in that time than she did.
All right. How's the fight going to end on November 18th?
Me like this.
Specific way?
And you know what? I always try to improvise. If you have a plan, there's a chance that your plan could go wrong. My last fight, that armbar I did, I never practiced it once in my life. I just made it up on the spot. So I always leave myself open to improvisation because anything can happen in a match.
All right, well, good luck. Nice to meet you again. Sorry for the sweaty palms. It's a little hot here in Las Vegas.
Actually, your hand's cold.
Oh, it is? All right. I don't know what that means. But good luck, and we look forward to the fight on the 18th.
All right, thank you. Me too.